Hi, this is Meng from Design Plus Code, and welcome to the fifth section of the React for Designers course. And today I want to teach you about something that I'm really excited about. It's called SVG Animation, and it's the wave that you see right here. And we are going to learn a technique that's going to allow us to take any shape from Figma or Sketch and try to animate that in a very organic way. Now, in the Figma document that is provided, you can see that there's a bunch of shapes that we're going to use for a wave. And the beautiful thing about SVG animation is that all the popular design tools out there are able to output as SVG. So for example, if I right click any of these shapes, I can go to copy as and copy as SVG. So that's really useful because you can use those shapes in code and you can customize the code so that you can decide to animate it or you can change its properties in code, and that makes it a lot more dynamic to manipulate. So let's go to the index page inside the folders called pages, and right underneath the link that says watch the video, we're gonna copy and paste the SVG code from Figma. So we're gonna go to Figma and we're gonna select the first shape right here by doing command click and right click on it and then copy as SVG. We're gonna go back and we're gonna paste this code. We save, and this is what we have so far. Now it's not animated, and we just need to apply some more techniques to make it animatable. The first thing though is to indent this correctly so that it doesn't look as messy. And now we're ready to apply some styling so that the position of our wave is going to be at the very bottom of the background. So let's head to the index.css, and at the very bottom we're gonna write hero SVG, and then we're gonna apply some properties to that. So far we've learned about the position fix, and the position fix allows us to position an element even when we're scrolling. But what is very typical is to use the position absolute, which is gonna float, but it's not necessarily going to float against the top after scroll. So we're gonna do that. Position absolute. And we're gonna set to the bottom of 0 and to the left of 0. So this is what we have so far. But what you're noticing is that it doesn't have any parent container, or it doesn't have a context to which it can say, okay, the bottom is the bottom of the background of the hero. So in order to get some context, what we need to do is to go to the hero and to set the position to relative. So what this means is that whatever is inside this container that has a position relative and that uses a position absolute, it's gonna take this as a context to apply the left position as well as the bottom position. So if I save, you can see that it's at the very bottom. Now, since it's positioned correctly, we can now start animating the thing. So we're gonna go to the index page and we're gonna find our SVG code. And so far we only have the path values. What we need to do is to add a new tag called animate. The animate tag has to be wrapped inside of the path tag. So I'm gonna do this right after the path. I'm gonna say animate. I'm gonna add a bunch of properties such as repeat count, which is gonna be indefinite, so forever. And then the fill is gonna be freeze. And the attribute name that I'm going to animate is gonna be the D value. The duration is gonna be 10 seconds. And then the rest is just about adding the values of the D. So this is the D value. We're gonna copy and paste these values to here. Now, before doing that, I'm gonna close my animate tag first. And also, I wanna make sure that the animate tag is being wrapped by the path tag. So I wanna unclose this path tag and close it right here. Like this. And then I'm gonna move the D values right here, cut. I'm gonna delete this, and I'm gonna put that inside of the values of my animate tag. So paste right here. So the first value represents the first state of my animation, but I need more states where it's gonna animate to. So I'm gonna go to the second state, which is this one, and I'm gonna select copy as SVG. I'm gonna come back and I'm just gonna put the SVG code somewhere so I can only extract the D values like this. And right before the double quote and right after the values here, first of all, I'm gonna add the semicolon, and then I'm gonna paste right here the second values for my animation. But of course, whatever is written here should be deleted after, otherwise it's gonna generate an error. So I'm gonna save this and make sure there's no semicolon here. So I'm gonna save, and here there's a bit of an animation going on, so it seems to be working. We just need to add more of those values. So I'm gonna go to the third one and copy as SVG. Again, just extracting the code, put it right here, and then it needs to come back to the first animation. And of course, we have to have the semicolon right after, but the last one doesn't need the semicolon. So again, first state, second state, third state, and then coming back to the first state. The last thing we want to take care of is the width of our SVG. Now you can see that it's taking 2560 in terms of width. So we just need to replace this by 100% instead. So 100% is going to take the full width of our browser. So when we save this, we won't have that problem anymore. And voila, that's all you needed to do in order to animate an SVG shape with different states from one to another and going back to the first position. And this can be any shape you want, right? Like it doesn't need to be a wave, it can be a circle, it can be, you know, a mountain, or it can be a triangle. The possibilities are really endless here. So while we're here, why don't we add the logos to our layout right here? So I'm gonna show you how to do that. First of all, we're gonna put that right underneath the video links. So right here, I'm gonna type div class name is equal to logos, and then close that div. So I'm gonna add an image tag, src is equal to, then curly brackets, and inside it we're gonna use require, single quote, and using the path to the images starting by logo sketch.png. The width is gonna be 50, and then close the tag. So we have this so far. And again, using the same technique, shift option down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that we have 6 elements. And we're gonna add Figma, Studio, Framer, React, as well as Swift. So now we have these 6 logos. So let's go to the styling, and we're gonna go to index.css, and at the very end we're gonna write hero dot logos, curly brackets, and we're gonna set it to a grid. So display grid, and then we're gonna set the grid template columns using the same technique for repeat, 6 columns, 1 FR. Now, the FR is a fraction unit. What it means is that it's gonna try to divide our grid into equally divided columns. So that's what it is. So when I do 1.fr, it means that, let's say I have 600 divided by 6, that means that each of the boxes would be 100. And that's really useful when you want all the boxes to be equally divided. We're also going to add a grid gap to 40 pixels. And then we're going to add a margin to 100 pixel and then 0. So top and bottom, left and right. So it's going to look like this. And then finally, we're going to justify our items to be centered. And before we end this, we need to take care of the use case for the small devices. So we're going to use media Mac with 460 pixel, and then we're going to set hero logos to a column of 3. So grid template columns, repeat 3 and then 1 FR. What this means is that when I set my device to 640 and less, it's gonna give me a row of 3 logos per line instead of having 6. Now looking at my console, I can see that there's an error here. It seems that it doesn't really like the view box values. So I'm gonna go to index.js and I'm gonna remove the view box and see if it's better. So I refresh and it's all good. The other thing I want to say about this specific animation is because of the size of the wave, it might really affect performance. You might have to do some tricks to make the performance better, and you might have better luck than me depending on the shapes that you're using. But definitely this is one of the more advanced topics, which is performance, and we're gonna try to tackle those issues later on. And that's it. Today you've learned how to animate SVGs. And this is one of the techniques that we have yet to see a lot of people use it, especially designers. And even developers have yet to use this technique in terms of morphing your animation and creating something really, really cool using shapes that you design in Sketch or Figma and try to transform that, to morph that, to mold that into another completely different shape. And I believe that in the future we're going to see a lot of more of that stuff because it's really, really interesting. But this is definitely the start, and this technique is going to take you a long way when it comes to experimenting with new animation techniques. So with that said, thank you so much for following along, and I hope to see really cool experiments from you. Please share that on Twitter. I would love to see the crazy ideas that you've come up with. So in the next section, we'll finally learn how to use components and props, how to pass data, and how to set something that is so efficient when it comes to reusing your elements inside your website. So I'll see you next time.